welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Convivial, congenial, and amiable. As always, the program is Focal Point. The network is AFR Talk, the American Family Radio Talk Network. Now, one of the things that we are here at the American Family Association is unwaveringly, unapologetically pro-life. We believe in the sanctity of human life. We believe that every baby in the womb from the moment it is conceived is a human being, that God is the one who is weaving that child together in the womb of his mother, that God has plans for every single child that are beyond our ability to count. We think the life of every single child, no matter how small, is precious and of infinite value in the eyes of God, and we want to see every life protected from the moment of conception onward. Now, we're fortunate all across the country to have pastors who have that same unwavering commitment to the sanctity of human life. One of them is on our decision maker line right now, Reverend Doug Lane. Reverend Lane is the director of Pastors for Life. And I explained earlier in the program that Mississippi is on the cusp of what could be a historic moment in the battle to protect the sanctity of human life. And Reverend Lane is on the forefront of trying to do something about it. Reverend Lane, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Thank you for having me, Brian, and thank you for being such an articulate spokesman for the unborn.
Well, it's great to have you on. And, Doug, I'm just going to go ahead and refer you to by Doug for the rest of the program, although you are a reverend, and I do want to show proper respect for that. Where I'm looking at the picture we have of you, for those that are watching on television or video streaming, got you with a picture. I guess are those your kids in the picture?
Those would be 2 of our 9 grandchildren.
So you have a personal commitment to the sanctity of life just looking at your own family.
We have a vested interest in protecting the unborn and the born.
Well, Doug, tell me what is going on. We've got the 40th anniversary of Roe v. Wade coming up, and you have started a campaign, I think, with a very succinct title to it that captures what you're about. So tell us the name of that campaign, what it's about, and some of the events that you've got going on this week, all in an effort to establish one state in the union that will be abortion-free.
Yes, we have a campaign that we've started, Brian, called 40 is Enough. And certainly we all understand that 40 years has been way too much. But
when you think about it, Doug, let me interject here. And it's 40isenough.com. 40 is spelled out. 40isenough.com. And it struck me, Doug, so many, the 40-year segment, so significant in biblical history, 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, Moses 40 years of preparation, Moses 40 years on the backside of the desert, Jesus 40 days of prayer and fasting. A generation was about 40 years. And so I think a lot of people will resonate with what you're saying there, that 40 is enough.
Yes, the cycles in the book of Judges, a lot of 40-year cycles there also. So we do believe, Brian, that it's significant. We would ask that people all across our country would pray for the state of Mississippi. We are so often on the bottom rung of the ladder in so many things, but when it comes to protecting the unborn, we have done, I know what we've been allowed to do. But, Brian, what makes this campaign different from others is that we are trying to get churches and especially pastors involved at a level that they have not been before. And so our first step in our 3-step campaign is we're having a pastor's luncheon here in Jackson, Mississippi at Wesley Biblical Seminary on Thursday, and our guest speaker will be Governor Phil Bryant. Our governor is unapologetically pro-life. He's stood up for the unborn, and he's spoken out for them when it would have served him better politically not to, but he is committed. And so the governor is our speaker, but this is not a political event. Brian, we don't believe that there is a political answer. We're all involved very politically, very much involved in politics, but we certainly believe that the answer is is the church. The church taking its position in this fight. And to be quite honest with you, Brian, I've been doing this for over 25 years. The church has not stepped up to the plate in that it has not responded by going and showing up at the very place that unborn children are being killed. The church has refused to show up en masse at the abortion clinics, and we only have one left in the state of Mississippi, and it's I like to describe it as hanging by a thread, and I believe that the church can cut that thread. And so we're getting pastors to come to this luncheon, and then our second step will be we're going to be sponsoring our 26th annual candlelight prayer vigil for the unborn at the state capitol here in Jackson on January the 19th. 26 years we've been doing this, and we're praying that this will be the last vigil like this that we have to have here in Mississippi. And then the third and final step, Brian, is the most important, and the verdict is out on how and what kind of a response we'll have to this, because we're going to have what we're calling 40 days of church. We're going to ask the pastors who come to our meeting and the pastors who come to our candlelight vigil to give us one more day out of the next 40 to come out and have church at what we describe as the gates of hell, the only remaining abortion clinic in Jackson, Mississippi, or the only remaining abortion clinic in Jackson. And Brian, I believe that if pastors and churches will do this, that we'll see this abortion clinic closed.
And I've been following this issue, of course, with great interest, talking here with Reverend Doug Lane, Director of Pastors for Life. And what's happened here, Doug, in Mississippi is that the legislature last year passed and was signed into law by Governor Phil Bryant. What a privilege it is, Doug, to have a governor who is who is an ally of the pro-life movement, not an opponent, not an adversary, but someone who is a supporter of the sanctity of life. What a privilege that is. And the legislature and Governor Bryant signed this into law as soon as he could, requires every abortion clinic in the state of Mississippi, the doctors that serve there, to have admitting privileges into area hospitals. And Doug, this just strikes me, if you care about the health of women, then you want them to have the best kind of medical care if something goes wrong with any kind of invasive surgical procedure. And that's all this would provide for, because we know that things can go disastrously wrong with abortions, that the life, the health, and even the life of a woman, the pregnant woman, can be placed in jeopardy when things go wrong. You can have uteruses getting punctured and damage to the cervix. You can have bleeding, hemorrhaging, and they may require emergency care. And it just makes sense to have the doctor who is performing the abortion have admitting privileges, so he can go with his patient and he can either treat her or help those who are treating her with knowledge of what's going on inside that woman's body. And that's a common sense law. It's good for women's health. It was passed. It's now signed into law. Judges kind of extended the deadline, but as I understand it, Doug, that deadline, that extension judicial deadline, is going to expire here shortly, in which case the doors of this abortion clinic ought to be required to close.
Well, Brian, it's interesting. The federal judge that ruled on this case said that he would allow the abortion clinic regulation in Mississippi to stand, and then he gave the abortion clinic a temporary restraining order against the state to enforce that for 90 days. That 90 days happens to be up the day after our pastor's luncheon. So the judge will either have to give them a further extension, or he will have to allow the state of Mississippi to begin to enforce that regulation. It's my understanding that if he rules in favor of the state of Mississippi, it will still be a time frame, and they're not too long, but a time frame where there are procedures that have to be gone through before they can close this down. But Brian, here's the thing.
And Doug, just to close a loop on that, the problem is that these doctors who do abortions were not able to get admitting privileges into any hospitals. In other words, I've said this before, but abortionists are bottom feeders in the medical community. They have no respect among others. The medical community exists, doctors exist to save life, to protect health, not to destroy it. So they've got no standing in the medical community whatsoever. They're scavengers, bottom feeders, and hospitals don't want to be attached to that. And so they have not been able to get admitting privileges. Anyway, finish your thought, Doug.
Well, no, very good point, Brian. And all you have to do is look at the history of abortion doctors, if you want to call them doctors, in our state. We had one fella who was arrested and put in jail for child pornography. We had another abortion doctor who was put out of business in Alabama for killing a girl. He hurt numerous women in Alabama and in Mississippi, leaving them with no recourse, Brian, for any financial remuneration for their suffering or their pain or even their hospital bills, because he had no malpractice insurance and had no admitting privileges. And another doctor put in jail for income tax evasion. The list goes on and on. You're correct. And absolutely, these regulations have already been upheld in at least 13 other states.
Our guest has been Reverend Doug Lane, Director of Pastors for Life. If you're a pastor listening to this broadcast and you're in Mississippi, I want to encourage you to go attend this luncheon this Thursday at Wesley Biblical Seminary. You can go to 40isenough.com, get more information. You can also call 601-956-8636 to RSVP for this luncheon with Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant, who was unapologetically pro-life. He's openly said he wants to see the day when abortions come to an end in the state of Mississippi. The number again is 601-956-8636. If you're a pastor, call that number or go to 40isenough.com. Attend this complimentary luncheon. Hear Governor Phil Bryant. Bring a colleague or two with you. If you have a pro-life pastor who may not be listening to this program today, get hold of him. Let him know about this luncheon this Thursday, Jackson, Mississippi, and let's see Mississippi become the first state in the union to be abortion-free. Reverend Doug Lane, thank you for taking time with us, and God bless you.